morning, good morning, good morning. Evening, afternoon, wherever you guys are, all out there in the greater worldwide tribal areas. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am learning how to do a few things at once, so just bear with me. There's several places for me to look, so I will focus on bringing you the stories as best as I can too, while also handling the chat. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. Hello to everybody that is saying hi. Fantastic. Thomas, how's Ireland?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, it's quite nice here. Everything's it's fine. Can't complain.
Fantastic.
Weather's quite nice. It's a little humid, but it's very pleasant. It's
good.
Yeah, it's good. I can yeah.
I would definitely
nothing out of the ordinary.
Good. Are you sure about that?
No, if it's my life, there's never anything out of the ordinary. It's always,
It's ordinary to be out of the ordinary. We had some really nice fall weather for a couple of days, and then it shot back up into the 90s, and we're smoke covered again. So staying indoors, which is not super fun, but decorated for fall yesterday, so it's never too early for pretty colors and spooky shit.
Like air filters into your houses to filter out the smoke.
Yeah, I need to get a new one and switch it out. It's probably time. Yeah.
For the kid, especially, it'd be I could imagine it's a big issue there.
Yeah, his allergies this year have gotten it a lot worse. So is mine. So yeah, trying to minimize exposure to all that stuff, which is really difficult.
And I wanted to ask everybody who's watching this on Facebook, how's the audio quality? Are we all even? Is one of the microphones louder than the other, or are we good to go before we kick this off? If someone could just put that in the chat, if it's loud and clear, if anything's messed up.
We're good. Okay. We're going to kick it off with this first one. This one was from last week. It is called The Well of Hell. Gaping desert hole is shrouded in mystery. Nobody knows what's at the bottom of the well of Barhout in Yemen, but local folklore has it that it was created as a prison for demons, hence the nickname The Well of Hell. And we've got an image of that, which will pop up there. Okay, far out in Yemen's remote eastern desert landscape, a gaping hole in the ground believed to be millions and millions years old fascinates and mystifies locals. Those who live near the hole, named the Well of Barhout, believe anything that comes close to the hell pit will be sucked in without escape. I'm just thinking of some people I know. The hole looms large in the public's imagination, according to Yemeni legend. Extinct tongues fizz on cold nights there, a reference to what might be lurking inside the hole. Shrouded in mystery, the Well of Barhout is in the Yemen desert, near the border with Oman. The natural wonder, popularly known as the Well of Hell, is in the Al-Mahara province and is 100 feet wide and thought to reach 330 feet down, but there are those who claim it's as much as 820 feet deep. Nobody has ever been to the bottom. A video crew from AFP recently flew a drone over the hole and captured stunning aerial footage of the mysterious pit. However, even with the drone flying directly over the hole and with the camera lens pointed straight down, it was impossible to see into its depths due to the extreme darkness. Yemeni oral tradition, passed down for centuries, calls the well a prison of dark spirits sheltered by unbearable odors that come from its entrails. Yemeni officials have said that they don't know what's down there, although geologists recently visited the site. We have gone to visit the area and entered the well, reaching more than 50 to 60 meters, or 174 feet, down into it. We noticed strange things inside. We also smelled something strange. It's a mysterious situation. It's very deep. We've never reached the bottom of this well, and there's little oxygen and no ventilation. People who have been near the well often talk of a foul, toxic odor. Amar Osman, who performed military service at a camp near the well, wrote, "The smell was unbearable. Bad smell like rotten eggs. I was nauseated by the severity of the smell." Not much can be seen from the edge of the well as sunlight does not extend very far down inside, and according to AFP, videographers say it's hard to capture anything when they shoot down inside. Still, despite the stench emanating from it, different types of birds are often seen flying in and out of the inky darkness. The weather in this part of Yemen is typically very hot and dry during the summer, though there can be thunderstorms over the nearby mountains on a rare occasion. Overall, the region does not receive much rain, with normal highs in the summer in the 90s to low 100s and normal highs in the winter in the 70s and 80s. Stories of demons and other supernatural figures known as jinns or genies that live in the well have circulated among locals over the centuries. Many nearby residents don't even like to talk about the hole, let alone visit it, for fear of bad luck. Bob Hare said the well has been there millions and millions of years, and he hopes to continue to learn more about it. These places require more study, research, and investigation. Demon holes.
Well, amazingly, not only did I know about this place, but I know someone has been there. I met someone who was actually there. It was a German chap I bumped into once who was working in Oman for the gas industry, I think. And he was backpacking all around that part of the Arabian Peninsula. And he told me about this this hole. And specifically, the conversation turned to the jinn, and that's where it came from. This is a remarkable thing. The whole thing is like, it's like if you ever have a stereotypical entrance to hell, well, there it is. It smells of rotten eggs, the sulfur, of course, and it's local folklore says it's loaded with jinn. But if you look at the way the hole is, it looks like it's been eroded by some kind of liquid going down. It almost looks like it's been tunneled with water or something in a spiral. Interesting, isn't it? Like it looks like it was something spiraled down and cut it into the ground. But
like a drill almost.
Yeah. It's one of the, I hate that expression bucket list, but it's one of the places on my bucket list. Also because I'm fascinated by Yemen. It's a fascinating culture, and it's like a place I've always wanted to visit culturally anyway, and because of the history and the culture there and so on. Yes, it also reminds me of a natural version of the initiation well at Sintra in Portugal. Now that's interesting because when I was in the initial initiation well in Sintra in Portugal, the thing looked like it was to trap jinn. It looked, because at the bottom of it are all subterranean tunnels. It was almost like a jinn trap. And remember, that was Moorish Portugal. So the Moors were there, Islam, 700 years. So the place is swarming in jinns. That's why it happens at Fatima and everything. All the caves around there are swarming in them. And that's where the Marian apparitions happened. Yes, it's a fantastic thing, this. It's really, I'm amazed it's not more well known. That's what I find interesting about it. But it definitely is, what's down the bottom. Wouldn't you love to see someone really do a proper exploration? Where's that sulfur smell coming from? And that one of the birds coming in and out is very strange, because sulfur and any kind of noxious gases, all birds are instantly killed by. That's why we bring canaries down into the coal mines. Birds are very sensitive to changes in gases outside the standard atmospheric thing. So, let's throw the supernatural thing in there. Are these birds actually jinn coming out, shape-shifting, disguised as birds? It's a fantastic mystery, and I'm just desperate to know more about it.
We have an infamous hole in Eastern Washington known as Meld Hole, and it has very similar folklore stories surrounding it. It's on private land now. It would be really interesting to try and get a hold of the person who owns that land to see if we could actually get access to it.
Yeah, that'd make a great little documentary. Go out there first, see if we can get filming permit from the person, interview the owner of the land, and just see, has anybody flown a drone down into there? Because I would imagine, just get one of those, I've got one of those like $50 cheap drones off of Amazon that has a 1080p camera on it, and there just needs some kind of illumination source on it, like a LED flashlight or something, and to be able to fly that down into Mel's Hole, or if anybody's done that out in the other one in Yemen, that would be really cool to see some drone footage in there. But I imagine the atmosphere down there might be a little difficult for the drone to fly in. But yeah, even if they lowered a camera down in on a crane or something, or on a pulley, just to be able to see what's down there. But I'd just be curious, like you're saying, Thomas, in the Sintra, if there were tunnels throughout, if there were volcanic tunnels, volcanic tubular things like that, or if this is closer to like what Yellowstone looks like out here on the west coast of the U.S. Because from what I've seen, I think that's just one big hole in the ground too, that's just got water coming out of it. So I wonder if this was like some kind of extinct volcanic. Yeah.
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 I was flying the drones in. I brought my drone one day to own the Gat Cave here, and just for footage. And I had the batteries charged up and ready to go. And then something told me it would be deeply disrespectful to fire up the drone and send it down the cave, even though I probably would have got beautiful footage with the lights illuminating the sides as the thing goes down, because I was in the cave. And in the end, I just climbed down, because the cave is accessible by climbing up and down it anyway. And so I just went down as I normally would on my hunkers, and then crawled back up through the cold. But it would have been fantastic looking, but it was almost like the minute I switched the drone on and the indication lights came on, I went, no, this is disrespectful. So
was that the Gat, or is that the right way to say that?
Only Gat, the Cave of the Cats. Yeah, it's in Roscommon and Rathcroggan, Cruachan, which is the centre, which is the Tara of the west of Ireland, where the royal centre. But there's a cave there called the Cave of the Cats, and there's actually cats live all around it, which is really bizarre, and they're not friendly either. And you know,
I mean, they call that the mouth of hell, or it's the Morgan's cave.
Yeah, the Christians called it the mouth of hell because the Morgan is supposed to come out of it, and it's a shame really, because it's a difficult climb down into it, and people who are claustrophobic start screaming and everything at some points. But I'm actually claustrophobic a little bit, and it didn't bother me because when you get to the bottom, it opens up into a big chamber. But it's the same thing. You feel that energy. I could only imagine this place in Yemen. Apparently, the guy was telling me that this place in Yemen is not inaccessible. It's on a main road between two cities, so it's not hard to get there. But it's just in a place where you're cooked alive by the sun. So it's like it's that you got the kind of like climatic issues, as though it's not hard to find. Yeah, I love stories like this. I'm fascinated by these deep subterranean stories, like, and places are. It's just, to me, it's an enormous mystery in these things that are not properly. They haven't properly looked into. It's something that needs a proper investigation. These deep sinkholes that have kind of mythological aspects to them, because there's something powerful in them. I mean, the inner earth thing, in terms of like Agatha, the whole inner sun, I never bought that, but I definitely, after being in the tunnels and catacombs of Malta, totally buy the idea that people have lived, or some kind of humanoids have lived, in vast subterranean caves under the earth. And that's probably what drives people to do potholing and caving, which is incredibly, to me, is a terrifying thing to do, like being 2 miles underground and squeezing through a little this thing. But what drives them down there? There has to be some kind of thing that drives them into those places. It's almost like instinctual.
It's like a hook into our subconscious.
Yeah, because it was
the ocean and outer space.
A musician I play with, he went to he joined a caving club here, and some of the stories he told me was like terrifying the shit out of me. It was like, it was down and it was like this wide, and he's a big, tall, lanky fella, and he says it was like literally on my shoulders, and you have to. The only way you can get back out is to go up 20 feet, turn around in a pool of water, swim in it, and then come back. And I'm saying, you must be out of your fucking mind to want to do that. And he says, Thomas, it was the weirdest thing. When you're down there, you feel like a force is leading you to the bottom.
Yeah.
I think the fear is a lot of times when people get stuck, and they can't turn around and they get overtaken by that. And, sometimes they pass away down there. But I think oftentimes, I know it's possible to get physically stuck, but I think a lot of times confronting that can be much too overwhelming.
Have you ever seen that movie, The Descent? It's about
I saw that movie in the theaters, and I fucking almost shit my pants.
It's super though. Some of the acting is a bit over the top and stuff, like the Irish girl and stuff, like the Irish kind of dykey girl. But it was like, other than that, that's kind of captured, like, what the fuck is down there,
And what I would like to see is somebody do a remote viewing study on this, because if we're talking about, it'd be disrespectful to fly a drone down there for any kind of tech. If you had a group of people who have, the shamanic ability to remote view something, it'd have to be in a controlled setting where, you give a group of remote viewers a target and not tell them what it is, where it is, when it is, but just get a group of people together and see, look at it from different aspects, like from 300 feet below ground, and what they said is 330 feet. 330 meters, yards or something.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah,
And
it's 330 meters is what, like 1,000 feet. You're talking about a mountain down, you know?
It's just interesting number too, 330 or 353. Coronzon's hole in the middle of the desert or something. But
Watch out
Yeah.
for Coronzon's hole.
But
I just wonder.
the remote viewing thing, wasn't that what Steiner said about the Vrilya when he read the book, the Coming Up the Power Race by Boyman Cones? His name is Boyman Cones. He said that this book was so plausible that the only way that this could be written was that the Vrilya really are down there, and through some kind of telecommunication, we're communicating with people on the surface. But that's the oldest science fiction novel as well. It's 1877. It's very old, but it's interesting that Steiner said that.
I mean, I think with the whole remote viewing thing, it's just a continuum of some of the stuff that they were doing in kind of the Golden Dawn era. With Thomas, you were talking about like drawing or painting a painting and then putting yourself into that world that you've painted. It just seems like what the Golden Dawn came out of the Theosophists and that kind of group of people, right? So there was already people working with these psychical phenomena. And I'd like to get that Golden Dawn book, the Israel Gardi one, just to kind of see what kind of stuff they were doing and find that continuum from Golden Dawn to Lima to some of the Bob Monroe stuff, because there is a logical line there of that kind of technology. But anyway, getting back onto
most I ever learned about the Golden Dawn was in this book here, Becoming George.
Oh,
it's the life of William Butler Yeats's wife, Georgina, and this is like I mean, I have you can see the posters.
Yes.
This book was really an insight into those days. I know we're going off topic here, but it's interesting. It really goes into those days. It's a pretty heavy novel. It's her biography about her, but whatever did it was it's the same. It's also similar to what was his name? The guy who did the biography for Elliman, of her husband, William Butler Yeats. He devoted large sections of that book to his life in the Golden Dawn. It's a very interesting book. You should read it. It's biography. This is even more into that. And he's got like really good notes on the whole initiation thing of the Golden. You see, it's a book that's not about the Golden Dawn. It's a biography, but you get more. It's like I'm always telling people the real meat is often in books that you don't think. This is a very scholarly biography of our life. But funny enough, I learned more about the Golden Dawn and the initiation rites and things like the spin out of theosophy and stuff and the spiritualist movement from this book more than many of the official books. So you always have to look around at alternative sources when you're researching this stuff, not just the basic, here's a book on theosophy, here's a book on spiritualism. The real gems are often found in books like that you least expect.
Yeah, and I think that's the continuum of where, our ancestry of these cyclical phenomenon come from. It's straight out of that with the Western mystery tradition. And yeah, the Israel Regardie book is great because it has all the rituals and as an encyclopedia, but I'm going to get that. Becoming George is what it's called?
Yeah, Becoming George, and it's The Life of Mrs. W.B. Yeats by Anne Sadelmeyer. I've actually seen this really cheap on Book Depository, so I got this. I bought this at a bookstall here, but I don't know how hard it is to get. But yeah, it's a great read. I mean, yeah, it's a story of her life and her involved with him. But
you got markers in there. What are your book markers in there?
They're all like. Let me go. I'll give an example. I marked them. This one says the conflict between respectable society and occultism. See, this is how I research.
Love it.
Respectable society and occultism, and then I'll read through the books, and then I'll be sitting in bed or having a cup of tea and reading it. The ghost theories. They had theories of what ghosts were. And it's how I've always done this stuff.
I like it. I'm going to get a copy of that, Thomas.
William Butler Yeats, over enthusiastic about the magical tradition. Ghosts and Dreams. And something like, and then it's quite a typical kind of insight into Crowley in this. But yeah, I mean, I found this a tremendous read. If you're interested in Irish history, even from the turn of the century, and that kind of thing, and poetry. There's lots about Ezra Pound in here, the American poet who was arrested for writing poems, basically. And so, yeah, that's a good thing. If you're for the viewers, if you're researching, yeah, you open the door with the kind of books that are typical of the subject. But when you want deeper dives, you look at biographies of people who were involved in the period of the time. And between this and Ellman's book on William Butler Yeats, you get a great insight into the Golden Dawn and the actual spiritualist movement of the Victorian era, and how it affected nationalism and cultural revivals. In fact, I read that as when I was researching Walpurgis Night, because there was this huge occult revival all over Europe. There was the Celtic twilight in this part of the world. There was that's kind of like that stuff. There was the Germanic stuff. So it was a very interesting time. Something happened in late, and something, it all happened in tandem with the discovery and the opening of the tombs in the pyramids of Giza.
Wow.
Just throwing that out there. But again, this is why we love doing what we do and why we have the Week in Strange.
And I was going to say, it's just with us, this group of people here, with the tribe, with Timony, you and me, it's like we've got, it's kind of, there's a temporal harmonic back to that era with the Golden Dawn and with the early kind of agape era, pre-1940s, that there's just this new kind of, this new occult field kind of emerging with our group here that's different than the chaos movement. It's just kind of like as things oscillate, it's obviously informed by the chaos movement.
And it happened on the cusp of the discovery of electronic communications, telephony, radio. And, it was almost like getting ready for people to communicate in non-corporeal ways.
Yep.
It's very, fascinating stuff.
And then this is, a continuum of your... Yeah, and this is a continuum of your velocity of now that, started off, an entirely new kind of occult movement. And now it's, we've got weekly hosting Thomas Sheridan here doing, the velocity of now live almost. We can do this using this technology that we've all been kind of forced into using, but it's just. Yeah.
I'm doing a podcast this week, by the way, for everybody listening, on a program called The Irish Inquiry with Aisling O'Loughlin, who's a former mainstream TV presenter and fashion correspondent here. And what she wants to talk about is magic. So we're reaching the mainstream with this stuff, Using
our powers for good.
Oh.
Okay, I apologize for my immaturity on the topic of polls. I couldn't help myself. I'll be more mature moving forward. Okay.
Saying that glasses.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This one, excuse me. This one comes from August 31st. It says, unique impact crater lake mysteriously disappears underground in Russia. The protected and almost perfectly round-shaped Lake Babe in the Voronezh region, Russia, has suddenly disappeared, like it has evaporated. The natural monument is 157 hectares large, 388 acres, and is located near the confluence of the Tokay and Elon rivers, in the floodplain of the Tokay River. The mysterious and rapid draining of the lake, situated in the Aniski district, was reported by baffled and worried residents on August 8, 2021. According to villagers, the lake has never dried up before. It is unknown if the unique lake will ever fill up again. Lake Babe is a natural monument of the Voronezh region and thus a protected area. The lake is almost perfectly round. It is 700 meters long and 625 meters wide. The depth of the reservoir ranges between 1 and 5 meters. The structure indicates the formation of a lake in a crater of non-volcanic origin, possibly from a meteorite fall. Within a few days, beginning of August 2021, moisture deficit and sweltering heat destroyed this unique lake. The water has completely disappeared. Meanwhile, officials are investigating the mysterious disappearance of the water. Is it only due to high temperatures, or did cracks and fissures also open up at the bottom of the lake? Back in 2020, Lake Kisto also lost all its water underground for the first time in more than 45 years. But in this case, the lake will fill up again when the underground aquifers overflow with water. And with the continuous drought and high temperatures, we may see more lakes disappear from the map. That picture up there. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, this is weird, the synchronicities this week. That's a volcanic impact site. And what happens is the water goes into a gigantic aquifer under the ground and it's plugged by organic matter. And every so often, the organic matter will collapse under the weight of the water pressure, changes the temperature, and the water vanishes. Is that what it said? The water vanishes?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lake, here we go again. There's a lake near here called Loch Nassool, the Lake of the Eye. And that's the legend where the Balor of the Evil Eye, when he was slain by Lu of the Long Arm, his eye had a laser beam type power, and he fell face down on the ground. And this laser beam type power burned a hole in the ground that became Loch Nassool. And every 11 years or so, the lake empties, just like that. And I'll tell you how, and I'll tell you in a second. My friend Kieran Cullen, who runs a business making beautiful traditional knitwears, and he used to be one of my gun buddies who go shooting, and he targets. I don't shoot animals, but he got stones from me for the bottom of the lake, and they were all burnt. So that definitely proved that it was an impact crater from a meteorite or something like that. But this lake was called Loch Nassool, the Lake of the Eye. People from all over Ireland in the 1940s and everything used to come to see it. It was like people years ago, they were entertained by different things than they are today. They actually went on adventures, So they would go when the lake would start emptying. Like people from all over Ireland would go to see the lake emptying, and it would literally the whole lake would vanish overnight, and it still happens. And it's because it's a volcano that punctured the Earth's crust, went into an aquifer, probably vaporized the water in the aquifer. And then every so often, organic matter, dead fish and plants, plug it up like a plug. You know, where a sink gets plugged in a drain, and then it opens. I'd be interested to know if there was, but that's exactly, I bet that one is the same thing. But I wish, if I had known the story was coming up, I would have, I haven't met in work, I would have brought the stones in to show them to you. Fascinating. They're definitely even burnt by high temperatures. And
take a picture of them and post them in the group later.
Yeah, I told him the story about this, and he says, "What's your theory on Loch Nassool?" I said, "I think it's an impact crater," and I think that's what the metaphor of Balor of the Evil Eye falling over and burning a hole in the ground. That's where that comes from. And he says, and he went out there, fair play to him. He has a boat, he has a dinghy, a rubber dinghy. He went out and he dropped down hooks and pulled up stones from the bottom, and they were all burnt like they were burnt by intense heat.
Is there any of the green glass down there that they find around some of these impact sites where the sand is just turned into? Yeah,
you might. I'll get the specimens. I'll find the specimens and we'll examine them properly. I'll take close-up macro photographs, and there might be glass in them. You never know. But I bet that thing in Russia is an impact crater, and I bet there's some local folklore about something about a god or something or a demon burned it in the ground.
Yeah, Slavic folklore, right? I wouldn't.
The problem is the commies destroyed all that. Unfortunately, the commies they hunted down the shamans and they claimed that they were all gangsters and everything, and they destroyed all the folklore. I was talking to somebody who's Kevin Flanagan, a friend of mine he moved to Georgia, and he says there's nothing. The communists, when they took it over, destroyed all the folklore, which is like something we should always remember, that why it's important for us to keep these stories alive.
Yeah. Keep the oral tradition going, just pass this down through generations. I mean, we're, like I said, we're getting a good start here with this group on the internet. Yeah, it's just beautiful to have this going.
Okay, moving on. This one is from August of this year. Solar superstorms, preparing for the incoming internet apocalypse. Scientists have known for decades that an extreme solar storm or a coronal mass ejection could damage electrical grids and potentially cause prolonged blackouts. The repercussions would be felt everywhere from global supply chains and transportation to internet and GPS access. Less examined until now, though, is the impact such a solar emission can have on internet infrastructure specifically. New research entitled Solar Superstorms, Planning for an Internet Apocalypse, shows that the failures could be catastrophic, particularly for the undersea cables that underpin the global internet. Abdu Joyathi's research points out an additional nuance to a blackout-causing solar storm, the scenario where even if power returns in hours or days, mass internet outages persist. Local versus international internet infrastructure. There's some good news up front. The doctor found the local and regional internet infrastructure would be at low risk of damage even in a massive solar storm because optical fiber itself isn't affected by geomagnetically induced currents. Short cable spans are also grounded very regularly. But for long undersea cables that connect continents, the risks are much greater. A solar storm that disrupted a number of these cables around the world could cause a massive loss of connectivity by cutting countries off at the source, even while leaving local infrastructure intact. It would be like cutting flow to an apartment building because of a water main break. We are unprepared for large-scale solar events. What really got me thinking about this is that with the pandemic, we saw how unprepared the world was. There was no protocol to deal with it effectively, and it's the same with internet resilience. Our infrastructure is not prepared for a large-scale solar event. We have very limited understanding of what the extent of the damage would be. That information gap mostly comes from lack of data. Severe solar storms are so rare that there are only 3 main examples to go off of in recent history. Large events in 1859 and 1921 demonstrated that geomagnetic disturbances can disrupt electrical infrastructure and communication lines like telegraph wires. During the massive 1859 Carrington event, compass needles swung wildly and unpredictably, and the aurora borealis was visible at the equator in Colombia. But those geomagnetic disturbances occurred before modern electric grids were established. A moderate severity solar storm in 1989 knocked out Hydro-Quebec's grid and caused a 9-hour blackout in Northeast Canada. But that too occurred before the rise of modern internet infrastructure. Solar storms are a real threat to internet resilience. Though they don't often happen, coronal mass ejections are a real threat to the internet resilience. And after 3 decades of low solar storm activity, she and other researchers point out that the probability of another incident is rising. Another factor that is often overlooked is that Earth's shield against solar storms, the magnetosphere, is weakening, which means even a moderate solar storm could be problematic. Undersea internet cables are potentially susceptible to solar storm damage for a few reasons. To shepherd data across oceans intact, cables are fitted with repeaters at intervals of roughly 50 to 150 kilometers, depending on the cable. These devices amplify the optical signal, making sure that nothing gets lost in transit, like a relay throw in baseball. While fiber optic cable isn't directly vulnerable to disruption by geomagnetically induced currents, the electronic internals of repeaters are, and enough repeater failures will render an entire undersea cable inoperable. Additionally, undersea cables are only grounded at extended intervals hundreds or thousands of kilometers apart, which leaves vulnerable components like repeaters more exposed to geomagnetically induced currents. The composition of the seafloor also varies, possibly making some grounding points more effective than others. Recently, an underwater landslide disrupted internet connection in parts of Africa. On top of all of this, a major solar storm could also knock out any equipment that orbits the Earth that enables services like satellite, internet, and global positioning. There are no models currently available of how this could play out. We have more understanding of how these storms would impact power systems, but that's all on land. In the ocean, it is even more difficult to predict. Coronal mass ejections tend to have more impact at higher latitudes, closer to the Earth's magnetic poles. That's what makes this more worrisome about cables in some regions more than others. For example, Asia faces less risk because Singapore acts as a hub for many undersea cables in the region, and it is at the equator. Many cables in that region are also shorter because they branch in many directions from that hub rather than being set up as one continuous span. Cables that cross the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans at high latitude would be at a great risk from even moderate storms.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we've been talking about this one a lot, but I see that, those fiber optic cables are the least of our worries if there is one of these big I think Ben calls them solar kill shots or something like that, where, just the small little PCBs that we have, inside of every single piece of electronics, they would just get fried out. Our computers and our smartphones wouldn't even switch on. So that fiber optic system will be nice when things do get reestablished and there is a power system that comes back on, that network will be in place and connectivity can be set up again. But it'll be one of those things where, across the Atlantic Ocean, it'll be probably difficult for us to communicate with you guys over on the other side of the pond, but we might still have a bit of an internet here in the continental US, and you guys might have something over there in the UK and Ireland and parts of Europe with the connections. But yeah, again, it's the least of our worries, the internet. But it is interesting that they're talking about this. But what I read into it with this is that they're trying to drum up this idea of portions of the internet being shut down here. That's what I think is going to happen. And I know I'm dabbling into politics a little bit with this, but I do get concerned that they're going to start censoring areas of the internet off, and it'll be more difficult. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when we're looking for stories, it's just like there's not as many weird stories out there, news stories, as there was like a year ago or even 6 months ago. So it's just like the amount of stuff on the internet is decreasing, and I imagine they're just going to kind of put us into little internet ghettos as we go forward here in the future, and they're going to use this as like a climate change thing and blame it all on climate change and stuff like that going on. But yeah, what do you think, Thomas?
Did Timony say at the end that the undersea cables would be affected?
Yes.
Well, that's tremendous. That's really surprising. Because you've ever seen those things? They're like steel. They're immense. There's like a lot of, actually, Ireland is where I think most of them come off from, and they're just a monstrous steel things. I'm really surprised that they would. That goes to show the danger of a flare, that it can actually wreck a cable surrounded in a metal shielding, a heavy metal shielding at the bottom of the ocean. Ugh. It isn't even worth bearing thinking about. But I think that the local internet thing, I think you're right about that. Do you remember, I don't know if it sounds like the last time I had a Matrix job 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the intranet, companies had intranets where they had their own internet, or where an organization had its own intranet, which was an internal internet. It'll probably be something like that if they survive at all. It's really shocking how this is never talked about much, and yet we're incredibly vulnerable. Like the way they went on about White K2, like it was the end of the world, and this is far more threatening in every level. Like last year, like 2 years ago, before the Rona thing, there was a restaurant near here where the computer system went down, and it's a busy place, and it was absolute chaos. They were having to only take cash. If you didn't have cash, you had to tell one of the people that you had to go get cash from the machine that was down the road. They had to write everything down on invoices and paper. And it was just in a course of one evening, it caused chaos for the staff and everything, because there was no swiping cards or clicking on menus and all this kind of thing. And if you look at like the logistics industry, from the factory to the delivery point, all along the way, it's digital. We could starve so easily. Why isn't this the biggest thing in the world? I don't understand.
And the fact that all of our infrastructure is controlled by, the water utilities, the pump systems, the sewer pump systems that pump sewage up, those are all controlled by the internet. The electrical grid, everything. It's like, you're talking about the financial system. It's just everything is so interconnected and reliant on the new tech industry that it's like, if that were to go down, we'd be fucked,
Yeah, we had a Carrington effect. What would transport be? These people who preserve steam locomotives at heritage sites, that would be the only transport available. That's why, I've heard that story about the British and the Swedes and the Russians storing steam locomotives in case something like this happened. And they're actually quite wise to do that, because like modern trains wouldn't work, and modern cars, trucks wouldn't work, because all the starting motors would be all burnt out. Literally, only thing
getting a horse and a carriage.
Horse and carriage and a steam locomotive. That's
Yep.
the steam locomotives would actually be the only thing. So who knows? Like these people that make these geeks who repair steam engines and run them on the weekends, and they go, "Oh, train spotters." Wouldn't it be ironic if they were the ones who saved the world?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, they've got a good collection of steam engines over here in the Pacific Northwest and in Sacramento. There's got the Union Pacific Big Boy and the Southern Pacific. Oh gosh, I think it's the 440. That big long steamliner. But they keep that down in Portland, Oregon, and yeah, that thing they keep that running, and they do tours with it every few years.
Yeah,
so.
I could expect you to go to England where that's a huge hobby. There is repairing steam engines. I could just see it now, like some city in England where people are starving. And then all of a sudden you hear, doo, doo, and here comes Jeremy with the food and the steam engine, and he's no longer a geek anymore. You know, he's a hero.
They have a Triskela flag.
Yeah,
I know. Like, doo, doo. Who's the bitch now?
Fuck you. we need a raft for the tribe so we can visit each other when the internet goes down.
Send carrier pigeons on the road, probably.
Fanzines or some fanzine. Jason in England had an idea for that. The other Jason in Cornwall, Heppenstall, and I think it's a great idea. Maybe we should start looking at the fanzines again, that we can send a post.
Especially now that the Triskela Coffee Collective thing is starting up in little areas, you know, it'd be nice to just have people in similar areas to be able to connect with.
We'll light the beacons.
I know, yeah, like in Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Yeah. Love it. All right, Thomas, are you ready to give us the psychic weather report?
Yeah.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The week in psychic weather.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the current edition of the Week in Psychic Weather. This is a strange one. You know, you're always kind of like led to believe that psychic weather can be bad or traumatic or intense or disruptive. But this week I'm finding it to be the opposite. People are calm. And how I know they're calm is that when someone flares up, it stands out an absolute mile compared to the calmness all around it. When like a Caronsonic amplifier sets off, they really show up really powerfully, where they would probably be in a period of intensity or psychic disruption or dysfunctionality. They would be hidden. In fact, and the reason why I'm wearing these glasses is because someone called me the devil today, and someone said I was actually the devil, and I saw these glasses on Peter Cook in the film Bedazzled in the 60s, where he was the devil. So I thought I'd wear them tonight for that reason. But it's like that person stood out a mile as being the only one who was crazy this week. And it seems to me there's a calmness at the moment. There's a gentleness in the psychic field at the moment. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're coming up to the 20th anniversary of 9/11. There's an introspection. There's a sense of softness about these things, a sense of almost mourning. I've been running a thing this week where I've been asking people to post photographs and images of the Twin Towers either being built or looking beautiful in gorgeous pictures. That's because it's time to undo that Freemasonic Samson ritual where they tore down the old world by collapsing the towers, and to rebuild them in their mind as a psychic thing. So the week in psychic weather is this week a calmness, but we have an opportunity to build and to restore the old world as it was prior to 9/11 in the days coming up to the event, and to like finally close the door on that Stargate and to actually re-engineer what they were doing to us. The time is, we see the Taliban thing is happening there. It's all these kind of things are coming together. The Taliban were unfairly blamed for the Twin Towers when we know it was the Saudis who did it, and they now have power. They now have their country back. They've survived. They've made it. There couldn't be a more powerful time for us to use the psychic weather now to repair the pain of the past. So if you actually take part in this thing, you will find that and things you're missing or lost from your past life will come back, and it'll be beautiful in many ways. So it's kind of like the psychic weather this week is a calmness, but it's almost like a mass leading towards the 20th anniversary of 9/11 and the hope of restoration of a better world. So it's actually quite a beautiful time. So don't ever get in this notion that everything to do with psychic weather is traumatic or dangerous or annoying. There's also beautiful periods as well. And I think we're moving through that right now. And that's the week in psychic weather.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The week in psychic weather.
I had something strange happen to do with your chaos ritual with posting the photos. I posted my first photo this morning. A couple of days ago, my son lost, it's called a Nintendo Switch. It's about this big. And on the sides, there's these little controllers and you can slide them off. And he had taken one off and then lost it. They're not very big. They're about that big. I posted my first picture this morning, and then as we were getting ready to do the show, I went into my closet to pull my sweater off the hanger, and I turned around, and about a second or two after I had turned around, I heard something hit the floor, and I looked behind me, and his little charger was just laying right there on the floor. It's like it fell out of a portal how the fuck did it end up falling out of thin air in my closet?
Yeah. He
doesn't put his charger in my closet.
I've also been going through my clothes, my drawers in my what you call a bureau in America, what we call a chest of drawers here, and all my clothes stored around the house. And I've been, throwing out ones that I'll never wear again, or T-shirts that have stains on them and stuff. And I've been finding lots of clothes that were still in bags that I'd never opened. So it was like, there's a great exercise in this. There's something quite beautiful. And this is the time to go back in time. We're spiraling backwards in time at this moment. I spoke about it today. If you think in terms of like, it was a pile of sand and you stuck your finger in it, 9/11, 20 years later today, that causes a furrow, a disruption in the sand. Be like that. But if you got a toothpick or something tiny and put it there and draw it backwards, you're actually going to re-experience many of the things in the quantum field that you had been through before. So it's a great way of bringing people. You'll find people you haven't spoke to in years talking back to you, things you've lost, that like what Timothy was saying. But even big things, people will find wedding rings that they lost in the garden and things like that. That happened between 2001 and now. Because 2001 is, it's why we're all here when you think about it, at the end of the day. We would probably be not interested in half the things we are if that Stargate wasn't opened. And that Freemasonic Samson ritual of collapsing the towers, well, we're rebuilding those towers again in our psyche and in the non-corporeal world by showing these beautiful, if you've seen the photographs, they're so beautiful. You forget how beautiful those towers were in New York, the way they captured the sun, the way they reflected on the water, the way they were so photogenic. One lady today, a friend of mine in Scotland, posted one with a wheat field in front of them. Jesus, it was beautiful, and also them being built. You see, like the hopes and the dreams of that in them. And I think, this is the week in psychic weather now. A calmness, but a rebuilding of the past, and it's quite gorgeous actually, because we've been given this calmness in order to do this ritual.
Yeah, at the quantum level, we're traveling back in time, where down at that base level, you can go forward and backwards and up and down and sideways, and so we're reverse engineering history basically.
Even like ABBA released an album this week. It's like, what? We're like nowhere. I don't remember reading about that. I'm waiting for something like the Smiths to reform or something like that. I think we'll see like things like that happening. With sudden announcements of bands reforming, or directors or actors who haven't played a role in a certain role for years. Maybe a new Rambo film. I'm just throwing things out there. But we'll see a lot of that kind of thing, a kind of an adjustment and a correction.
It makes me wonder too about the Mandela effect. If we'll start to see some of those things that disappeared come back in, media and in images and movies and things like that. That I don't know. Did you ever hear about that movie called Shazam? I remember watching that movie when I was little. I watched that movie. It was on the Disney Channel. I recorded it. I had it on a VHS.
I know it's real.
Tell me it never existed.
I know it's real. I also have even more bizarre memories of that. I have an incredibly strong memory of having a trial for a soccer team when I was about 17, and it didn't go well. And I cannot remember how the thing happened, but somehow in my dreams or in my mind, I remember that day doing the trial as a professional club, and I remember doing the trial as a goalkeeper for a few hours, and it didn't go well at all. I was very nervous, and it was just something that I showed up just to see if anything happened. But it was like I was upset about it. But it's almost like it never happened. It happened to someone else. And in the last few days, I've started to have clear memories of it again, as if there was another version of me has now been stitched into this version. It's so fucking bizarre. It's really weird.
And about the ABBA thing, again, what I thought was real strange about it is out of all the bands for the industry to resurrect, to take one that has a name that's
odd.
What's that called?
Oh, fuck.
Palindrome. Thank you. Sarah Palin. No, palindrome. Yeah, but out of all the bands, and then with that number 11 being a palindrome as well. But yeah, out of everyone to resurrect, it's not like they were something that great,
I was seeing people on my Facebook page were saying they were seeing the number 22 everywhere, which is 11 and 11. So, and then that plane that was involved in the airlift, that bizarre episode, it's almost like it wasn't real or something, like a dream of the people clinging onto the plane being called 11-9,
Yeah.
There was something else with that flight. I can't remember the exact details, but if you added up the numbers, it was like I'll have to find the information on it again. But when you added up the numbers, I think there were numbers stamped. It wasn't the 9/11 thing. It was a different set of numbers that had to do with the plane. And when you added those all up, it added to 13. And then there was the inverse was 31, and then we had to be out of there by the 31st. And then there was
13 Marines.
Yeah, the 13 Marines were. They passed away. Oh man, I'll have to find that article and share it.
Could you imagine the psychic charge in Kabul airport right now?
Oh, it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's the N number that was on the airplane, so the tail number. So all aircraft in the world have a tail number. In the United States, there's an N there for North America, I think, and then it's the serial number basically that the FAA has that airplane registered to. And I guess that's what, using gematria, if you add that all together and see, it added to 13. So with the 13 Marines that died right then, but it's just strange. And yeah, like you said, it all creates like a strange charge that went into this. And yeah, there's just, coming back out the other end of the portal right now with, the news. I saw something there was about August 29th of 2005. It's like there's a hurricane in the Gulf of the US. Kanye had released an album. Afghanistan was in the news, and there's like one other thing, and here it is, August 29th of 2021. It's the same thing. There's a hurricane, Kanye dropping an album, and Afghanistan being in the news, and there's one other thing. So it's just like there's this cycle that we're going through again. And like you said, Thomas, it's like the things that we went through in there, we might re-experience them again. And I think we talked about this maybe a week or two ago that my mom and I were discussing this. It was in like May or June. It was just people and things that we knew from about the 2008 to 2006 timeframe were for some reason coming back into our lives right then. And she and I were sitting in downtown Ventura talking about this. And literally I was running into professors from school that I knew from then. One of them was walking right down the street. I'm like, Dr. Roshinho, I haven't seen you for, since like 2008. There's literally like somebody from that era just walked into our path. But, yeah, so it's like we're coming back out of it, and I really love this ritual that Thomas that you composed here. With
what's even more bizarre about it is that I did it Sunday morning yesterday. I go to work very early on a Sunday morning. I'm up about 6, and I do a lot of packing up and stuff, and then around 8 o'clock, I might have a cup of coffee, go to the car, and make a video on a Sunday morning. And that's why I'm often quite tired, because I've been working, and then the regular day starts. But I have an hour where nothing happens, an hour or two, and that's when I'll make my video. Well, after I made the video, the Guardian newspaper in England and the RT website in here both had a thing and articles on the same, that like literally minutes and hours afterwards, the day before 9/11. And that's what I'm trying to tell people to imagine: the day before 9/11, 9/10. There's actually a footage of, I think it's ABC or NBC New York, where they show, good morning, New York. Here's a beautiful shot of downtown Manhattan. And they show it like literally 15 minutes before the plane hits. And I've been watching that nonstop and saying, that's where I am again. That's where we are again.
Yep. Take it back to that calm quietness before all the chaos happened. Okay. This one is very interesting. This one was published September 2nd. Says, a new Navy weapon actually stops you from talking. Hearing voices, it might be the U.S. Navy's new non-lethal weapon. The U.S. Navy has successfully invented a special electronic device that is designed to stop people from talking. A form of non-lethal weapon, the new electronic device effectively repeats a speaker's own voice back at them and only them while they attempt to talk. It was developed and patented back in 2019, but has only recently been discovered, according to a report by the New Scientist. The main idea of the weapon is to disorientate a target so much that they will be unable to communicate effectively with other people. Called acoustic hailing and disruption, AHAD, excuse me, the weapon is able to record speech and instantly broadcast it at a target in milliseconds. Much like an annoying sibling, this action will disrupt the target's concentration and, in theory, discourage them from continuing to speak. It is important to note that the device is unlikely to be used on the battlefield anytime soon and will probably be used as a form of crowd control. AHAD has been developed by engineers at the Naval Surface Warfare, Crane Division and Navy Research, and developing facility in Indiana that develops handheld and crew-served weapons for the service. As for the technical details of the device, a quick review of its patent is very interesting indeed. According to an illustrative embodiment of the present disclosure, a target speech is directed back to them twice, once immediately and once after a short delay. This delay creates delayed auditory feedback, DAF, which alters the speaker's normal perception of their own voice. In normal speech, a speaker hears their own words with a slight delay, and the body is accustomed to this feedback. By introducing another audio feedback source with a sufficiently long delay, the speaker's concentration is disrupted and it becomes difficult to continue speaking. If you want to see the thing in action, the patent filing handily also includes a sort of promotional video of another device that works in a similar way. The device effectively annoys someone into not speaking. AHAD works by using a series of directional microphones and speakers that can target a speaker's voice. The speech is then recorded and transmitted back in the same direction. Interestingly, the broadcasted sound is on a narrow beam and will only be heard by the speaker. This will not only confuse the target, but ultimately prevent them from being able to concentrate and stop talking. The behavior of the target will be noticeably altered by the action, likely also confusing anyone who is listening to the target person. Put another way, such a weapon will make you think you're going crazy. So too the people around you. Such a technique will likely be most effective when the repeating speech is a syllable or two behind the real-time speech of the target speaker. You can think about how distracting this would be if you've ever experienced an echo of your voice on a phone call. It is also important to note that devices like AHAD could have other applications too. For example, it could be used as a form of electronic hailing device between ships. More intriguingly, as the patent alludes to, by aiming AHAD system at a wall or corner, AHAD system can also project sound to the target surface such that audio appears to originate from the target. AHAD now joins the tanks of other non-lethal weapons currently fielded by the U.S. Armed Forces, like, for example, the non-lethal long-range acoustic device. This sonic weapon is able to focus sonic waves at high decibel levels at a target, leading to the target suffering from migraines, ringing of the ears, or mild pain and discomfort. Quite how the U.S. Armed Forces will deploy and use AHAD is yet to be seen, but it is guaranteed to annoy enemy combats or domestic malcontents.
This one kind of reminds me of, what was that film called, Men Who Stare at Goats, and they've got all the different little plastic non-combative non-violent weapons that they used. But yeah, again, this is kind of the same thing. Like when before we started a live stream, we had our voice echoing back in a feedback loop, and I definitely can't talk when I have a couple millisecond delay on my voice. It just slows me down. But the thing that I thought was really interesting that they said in this was the fact that they could bounce this off of something to make it sound like it was originating from somewhere. And the way that if they could do that, if someone were, they could play back the speech of someone's voice saying something to make it so that a target appeared to be saying something, and you could totally set someone up by broadcasting their own voice back at them and saying, oh, look, this person said this. So I feel like, they always give us, maybe 10% of what's actually going on with a weapon like this. And they say that, oh, it won't be deployed anytime soon.
They've already been using it.
Right. Yeah, sure it won't be used. But yeah, this is just one of those weird things. And I know that they've got that other one. I think it's called an LRAD, but it is blast a loud, like 120 decibel sound wave at something like 80 hertz, which resonates, your chest resonates at about 85 hertz. So if you hit somebody with that, it's just you can totally disable them with that much sound. But again, yeah, I think this could be used for some strange purposes here. And this combined with something like, what's it called, Project Bluebeam, where they project something in the sky, and if they're projecting sound in a certain direction, you could do some weird shit with that.
Yeah, sounds can be very disorientating if they're in the wrong place to your cognition. Back in the band days, I was playing around with guitar effects, and I always use an analog delay. An electroharmonics memory man is what I used to use, which is a very subtle and quite a beautiful delay system. But it didn't have precise control over where the repeats happened or the seconds in between. And I used to use that with a chorus pedal, but also I would use a flanger sometimes. And one time I was playing with the sweep of the flanger with the repeat of the echo, and I couldn't tell if the hit note or the repeat note was the hit note. You understand what I'm saying? Like the echo and the attack note, I couldn't tell which was which. It was really weird, just simply because the sweep of the flanger had done something to the sound. And it was like we were playing it to the studio technician, the engineer, and he said, "What the hell? I can't tell where." I said, "Okay, I don't look," and I'd hit say a string, and then and I go, "Okay, when did I hit the string? Just now? No, I hit it a few seconds ago." It was weird, and we were both like discombobulated by this. So I can definitely see the power of this kind of thing to actually mess with your cognition and the clock speed of your brain, especially. You know what it reminds me of? It's the audio version of the Dazzle ships. Did you ever hear about the Dazzle ships? The Dazzle ships, they were painted mad colors in World War I, or mad geometric shapes. And when gun sighters would try to sight the battleship painted in pink polka dots and black and white stripes, they couldn't quite sight the gun tables, the gunnery tables. They'd be doing the gunnery tables. It's 4 miles away, battleship. They couldn't do it because the colors would disorient them, and the shells would miss. And eventually radar stopped all that because they could do it through things like radar and echo and sonar. But the Dazzle ships were the same thing. It's like, where is the ship? Is it over there? Is it over there? Is it even a ship? It just causes total cognitive confusion. So yeah, that could be that's actually kind of frightening thing to think of, how they could use that in stadiums and stuff like that to disorient people.
Well, yeah, that's what it said in the article, is it would most likely be used on large groups of people.
Crowd control.
Crowd control, right?
Yeah, the fuckers put us from every angle, don't they?
Yeah. I was thinking too about, Thomas, what you're saying with the razzle dazzle camouflage thing. It's also great kind of harlequin craft like with what you've talked about, you know, on the internet, having a persona that nobody can quite lock their sights onto, and being able to use a little bit of Harlequin craft to make it so that, you know, the people who are profiling you, or the people who, you know, any agencies tailing you, it's like they can't quite put a beat on you, because, you know, you're moving around enough and have enough razzle dazzle camouflage with what you post, so that it's just, you know, they'll try to pigeonhole us into being a certain way, but you gotta keep moving a little bit and be a bit of a Harlequin, or have a little razzle dazzle in there.
There's a dazzle ship in the Victoria in Liverpool, painted by Peter Blake, who did the album covers for like Sgt. Pepper's for the Beatles, and it's not even a big ship, but you just in the middle of this grey dock, you see this thing that's like mad colors. It's psychedelic colors. Even a small ship, it's strange looking. You know, I could imagine what a big, huge, full-scale battleship painted like that must have been like back in the day.
Right. Well, that's terrifying. Okay, let me get this one loaded up here. Okay, here we go. This one's from September 3rd. Flying drones who automatically check holidaymakers' temperatures on Italian beach in case of COVID and other emergencies. Italian officials want a drone to fly around and measure the temperatures of people relaxing on a beach near Rome in order to track COVID-19 and prevent health emergencies. The medical drone was scheduled to patrol the beaches of Ostia, a suburb of Rome, on Saturday and Sunday, but the experiment was postponed due to a bad weather forecast. According to local health officials, the drone would automatically measure temperatures while hovering at least 25 meters above the water and staying at least 30 meters away from people. Test flights were planned to last for 5 hours between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. When the drone detects a person with a fever, it identifies them and alerts the medical surveillance team, the official said, as quoted by Italian media. Doctors then arrive at the site for investigation, which can lead to a COVID-19 test. Officials promised to respect privacy, saying that holidaymakers with normal temperatures will not be identified. Marta Branca, the head of ASL Roma 3, a public health authority that covers several districts of Italy's capital, denied rumors that the flying device will be used to hunt down people who spread the disease. It's just a way to make sure that an illness or an accident on the beach or at sea is detected immediately and not a single moment is lost in the rescue efforts. My father had died like that. Maybe with the drone, he would still be here. At the same time, Branca acknowledged some lapses in communication about the initiative, promising to avoid misunderstandings in the future. Well, that sounds like they're going to show up and stick you with a vaccine or take you off to the hospital and put you on an air balloon.
It just sounds like a crock of shit, to be honest with you, to scare people. Like there'll be a drone hunting you on the beach if you're not vaccinated. It sounds like total bollocks, this story. How can it tell your temperature on a hot day like that? It doesn't seem like it would work. You know what I mean? It just seems to be nonsense.
Yeah. And I imagine too, like with the facial recognition software and stuff, if there are drones, because I've seen them when I'm walking down the promenade in Ventura. There's these, you know, the news drones that go around, and you know they're commercial drones, and I know that facial recognition technology is pretty sophisticated now. But once those things do go out there, I feel like that's a slippery slope. Once there are law enforcement drones or, you know, NHS drones or whatever this bullshit, we have to start getting shotguns with drone loads in there, bird shot for drones.
Italy has been on the forefront of this COVID bullshit, though. Have you noticed in terms of this stuff? They were the ones who had all the trucks parked on the street in Milan to make us all think the residents of Milan were going to be carried out in thousands to mass graves. The Italian Prime Minister this week said something about mandatory vaccinations, and there was nearly a riot over it. It's like it's weird. And now this thing on the beaches. It did say Italy, didn't it? That this is happening. Yeah. It's just there's almost like some very sinister shit coming out. And then there was also the photographs of all the dead bodies. It turned out that they were from an earthquake, and they said they were all COVID victims, and that was in Italy as well. And it's just, there's some crazy shit coming out of Italy about all this COVID stuff. And it seems to be the Italian government is some of the biggest assholes of all in pushing this stuff and the media there, and it gets picked up by Western media. I just can't see how that technology would work. I can't see it. And also, did it say it measures your temperature?
Yeah, it's like, how they can
do an indication of COVID.
Yeah. You know how they can do thermal imaging, like the police helicopters that they use for hunting down guys in the bushes? Yeah, and I imagine they'll have it set at a threshold where, like, what human body temperature is 98.6, and it'll be something like, if it's over 100, I imagine somebody will glow, bright purple. But if somebody's laying in the sun tanning on the beach,
exactly, you're sitting in the beach in Naples. The sun is baking you. You've had like a pasta chili dish. A beautiful Italian goddess walks by you in a string bikini, and these fuckers are going to tell if you have COVID or not. Give me a fucking break.
They'll be seeing the cloud of gas come out of you too as you fart.
I know. It's just bullshit.
Get him off the beach.
It's all the gas. It's the gaslighting black magic thing. Oh, they have machines that can tell you can do or like this or like that. I often wonder how reliable this technology is, like the iris scanners they have at the airports. I often wonder how many. You never hear about their failures. You never hear about what the success rate is like or what anything. You never hear their failures of these technologies.
Yeah, and all they really have to do is just suggest that they can do that, and people will scare the shit out of themselves, and they won't even have to be told what to do. They'll already be doing it.
A Chinese restaurant, and the guy pointed a fucking gun at my forehead to measure. The Chinese guy pointed. He goes, "Hold on a second, sir," and he points a gun at my forehead to take my temperature. It was like this was a ridiculous, farcical thing. You could have a high temperature for numerous reasons, and especially in a restaurant that's serving hot food and stuff. It's unbelievable. This is just part of the whole gaslighting and the madness of the whole COVID thing.
I know that pisses me off when you go into a restaurant and you walk in and they just pull something from underneath and point it at your head. It's like some people, if you pull something out from under a counter and point it at their head, they're going to come in and take that out of your hand. But it's like they don't give you any warning. They just put it at your forehead. That really pissed me off when that happened to me one time.
Being older than you guys, I remember when the ozone hole was the biggest problem in the world, and they said if you were using aerosol sprays, the fucking ozone hole would grow big, and it was every year the ozone hole's getting bigger. Soon it'll open over Europe and North America, and children will have to wear. And there were out these bullshit stories we're hearing in New Zealand again of New Zealand children having to wear clothes gloves and everything because they had no protection from radiation from the sun because of the hole in the ozone there.
Hairdressers destroyed the world.
Right.
With us and our damn hairsprays.
The biggest thing. It was like the COVID, and all the scientists were all hoarding their money over it, getting their research grants, right? Oh, yes, it's a very dangerous thing. And then it turns out that they discovered that the ozone, suddenly overnight, the ozone hole closes up. And they go, oh, it's a natural cycle. So what about banning all these aerosols and telling us that if you used, it's funny how it happened in the 80s because people were using Aquanet, the big and crimping irons to pull their hair out, guilty as charged. And
I want a photo.
You don't, you really don't. But
I really do.
I used Paul Mitchell's
the hairspray.
The liquid one that didn't have an aerosol, and it was grapefruit flavored.
Yeah.
You use that. If you're white trash, you use that Aquanet. But it was funny. All the hairspray that was used during the 80s, subconsciously, they tried to make out was destroying the planet. It's just like the COVID. All the traveling you're doing is killing the planet. The amount of gaslighting and bullshit we're subjected to, and I guarantee you, in 20 years' time, you'll be telling people, when there's a COVID thing, it was the end of the world. And now, the latest bullshit is now pulled out.
Yeah. And it's like the plastic straws thing too, where it's like they banned the plastic straws there because of one video where there's a turtle with a barnacle in its nose that was being pulled out. That video that we've all seen, and they said, oh, there's a straw. And it's because of that one video, the world lost their mind, and okay, no more plastic straws. So we get, you go to a burger joint, you get like this paper thing that disintegrates, But it's like, meanwhile, there's all these masks and everything laying in the bushes and everywhere.
God.
But it's just,
or an industrial slaughterhouse. If you put a cameras in there and broadcast them, that would put things into perspective. Barnacle had a fucking straw on it, If you just see what they do to like pigs and cows in these places. I mean, that's why, I'm not judging people, I'm not judging meat eaters, but it's just like we're sheltered so much from reality, and it's the reality they don't want us to see. I get my meat from a farm where the guy slaughters it locally away from them. I'm lucky to have that. But I mean, people go on about the same fuckers going on about a barnacle doesn't give a shit about what happens into animals and slaughterhouses, industrial slaughterhouses and stuff like
They're
that.
going to get on their privately chartered jet to go to the turtle to save its life from plastic.
Oh yeah, well, there was the whole thing back when the global warming started, that they'd be stepping over kids that were starving in order to go protect a moth in the jungle.
Yeah.
That's the decadence of these people, and the COVID thing, right? There's still people dying of cancer and heart disease. There's still cholera is still a massive killer in the third world. Where are all these bleeding those people? Why aren't you down in the Congo dealing with things like cholera from bad water? I mean, we could talk forever about this crap, but that story is a classic example of this fake morality that's kind of like a scientific judgment that comes out of Abrahamic bullshit.
Right. And it's like we were talking about with Sarah Adams the other day. I like to use the term weaponized empathy, where they will, the media will show you something that will pull on your heartstrings it'll be so targeted, and it'll just get this emotional response from people. And then after that, it'll be, oh, this is what you need to do because of this. So there's this weird, again, dark chaos magic about it, where they'll take something that's, something very commonplace, whether it's the straws or the hairspray, and just use that to bring about some sort of agenda. And it's just that.
Cecil the lion. Remember that crap?
The what?
Cecil the lion. Some guy shot a lion called Cecil about 10 years ago. And they were having protests outside the American embassy in London over it. Lions are absolute bastards. Male lions are absolute pieces of shit. They kill their own cubs and everything in order to, and they sit around all day with a boner while the female lionesses do all the hunting for the pack, and if they don't like, they feel threatened by the cubs in the pack, they kill them all. I mean, so they watch The Lion King and they think it's real,
Yeah, it's so crazy how that they'll put all this attention to keep people's focus onto something that's so far away from them, yet like their own life and their own families falling apart, but they allegedly care so much about,
telescopic philanthropy, as Charles Taylor Dickens called it. And it's a fantastic statement. I saw a video of like junkies in Philadelphia the other day. You probably saw it was on the group. Shocking, absolutely shocking what's going on in parts of Philadelphia, on the streets, not just one or two, hundreds over a vast area of the city. And yet the same fuckers who care about climate change couldn't walk downtown to say, like, why does this exist? What are you doing about it? Why are these people on these drugs? Are you helping them? Are you helping the city? No, you'll have city councillors in Philadelphia going, what's our climate change policy? When they have like that down. And that goes on in every city, not just Philadelphia.
Right. And it's just, in the Rust Belt of the United States, that's just everywhere. And that's a real epidemic here. It's just what's going on there. But, they're giving away free COVID vaccines, but they won't give away insulin.
Food and medical health.
Yeah, food, medical health, insulin.
Yeah, something like a sandwich. Can I have a sandwich, please? Or can I help do something?
No, it's actually illegal for the restaurants and in grocery stores here. If they have surplus stuff that's still good, they have to throw it away. Right. They cannot give it away. It's fucking illegal.
But you know who's on the forefront of a lot of that? The charities. There's a group in Dublin that I saw, and they feed the homeless. And apparently they chastise restaurants who give the homeless free food, so they can look like heroes feeding the homeless. So there's all kinds of weird bullshit agendas involved in that as well. The way they pad. I mean, I have a friend who worked in a supermarket near here, and she told me if you saw the amount of food that they throw at the end of the day, and that's in a small Irish village, and then you multiply that by every urban area on earth, it's shocking.
Right.
The amount of food that gets dumped.
Yeah.
And all they need is a group of volunteers to take some of that food and prepare it into meals, do soup kitchens. And,
just that's it.
Imagine how the world would change if people actually were fed well, had good nutrition, their mental health would improve, their physical health would improve. Half the fucking problems would disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories of people who were retired, who were saw starving people, homeless people around town. So they would spend the evenings cooking up rice and curries and stuff like that and bringing them down to them in winters. And then, like, people slapping them on the wrist, you shouldn't be feeding them. You don't have a license.
right.
You know, it's disgusting, you know.
Bureaucratic bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Steve Hughes said, that he has a joke where we had him on the symposium. There's a joke he tells where he says, you know, I give money to the homeless on the street, and someone will say, oh, there are charities to do that. He'll only spend the money on, you know, don't give the homeless money. They'll only spend it on booze and drugs. And Steve Hughes goes, well, what were we going to spend it on? You know?
Yeah. I like that guy. It's funny.
I often give €20 to a homeless person when I see them, and I don't care if he buys a line of smack or any drug or crack or if he buys a sandwich or a bowl of soup. I don't care. The money is not conditional. It's his to do what he wants with it, or she to do what she wants with it.
Oh, you mean you're not trying to control everybody?
No, I throw them €20 and I say, if you want to buy a bottle of whiskey to deal with your toothache, so be it.
Right. Yeah, a gift is a gift without strings attached. All right, you guys, that wraps it up for our story time. We had some really good comments. Thank you, everybody, for participating and for being patient with me while I figure out how to do both of these. I tried to respond to everybody. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I will try to do better next time. Thomas, thank you so much for spending your evening. I know it's about, 9:30 where you are now?
Yeah.
10?
I'm fine. I'll be up for another 4 or 5 or 6 hours. No problem. I think we should tell people who's coming up on the symposium. We have, who's coming up on Wednesday?
We've got Lon Milo Duquette on Wednesday, but tomorrow we have Tata.
His name is Tata Oriete. He is a Palo Mayombe high priest. He will be on tomorrow to talk to us about his beautiful traditions that come from the Congo, Cuba, Puerto Rico. So he'll be on tomorrow. And then Wednesday is your guy.
Yep, Wednesday, Lon Milo Duquette. And then Thursday, Thomas, you said...
Clive the Carl, who's an expert in nutrition and herbs and stuff like that. But he also has an interest in things like Nikola Tesla and stuff like that. So I've known that man for years, and he's interviewed me years ago on his show. But he's a very interesting person. So that's like, so we have like 3 great shows coming up this week. And I'll also be on, don't forget, Wednesday night before Lon Milo Duquette comes on, I'll be on the Irish Inquiry with Aisling O'Loughlin on Facebook and that'll be Facebook Live, a video talking about magic.
Awesome. Yep. And then the following week, we've got a few people, so we'll let you all know about that next week. And then, keep giving us suggestions, recommendations, people that you guys think would be great, interesting people to have on the symposium. So we're always open to your guys' suggestions. You have great ideas.
Yeah, and if anybody has a contact number for Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, let me know. I've been trying to contact him like crazy. I think he'd make a great guest, considering what all that band has been through over the years. So if anyone knows...
Anybody has a contact for Danny Carey, we need his contact.
He lives in Dublin, so if anyone knows Joe Elliott, we'd love to have him on the symposium from Def Leppard.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
All right, you guys. Much love to all of you out there in the greater tribe. Take care of each other. And we will see you all next week.
Bye-bye.